Hello and welcome to the Thriller Zone. It's time for our year-end extravaganza. Look who's here, Tammy Temple.
Hi. So nice to be in your space, David Temple.
And I'm loving your little, what did you call it, the Charlie Brown tree?
Well, it's not really a Charlie Brown tree. I liked a Charlie Brown tree. This is a little micro live tree.
Okay. Well, I like it. And by the way, folks, just in case you're wondering, we are under the same roof. You're going to watch. For those who are watching, you'll really appreciate this. Wave. We're trying to, with like I was talking to my buddy Anthony this afternoon, and he said, one thing about you, Temple, you're always mixing it up. It's always something changing just a little bit. And I'm like, you got to keep it fresh at all times. So anyway, happy holidays, everybody.
And we've had this opening now 8 times.
Maybe it's the 4th time. Yeah. Anyway, so here's what we're going to learn. We told you in our promotionals that we were going to be doing the top 5 books, films, and TV shows. However, because I'm not a rule follower, thank my church upbringing for that, I've got top 10 books, films, and TV shows, and I think my young Tammy wife, beautiful and talented as she is probably going to match me with that. Would that be fair to say?
I'm breaking some rules.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Breaking the rules. We will be scattering some Christmas holiday music. I should say holiday music because I want to keep everybody happy, because if I say Christmas, then I might offend some people.
I'm a Christmas person,
okay,
so
good.
It's Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah and all the other smattering of holidays.
Yeah, I just go with a big old generic Happy Holidays. A lot of people go, dude, you're leaving Christ out of Christmas. I'm like, anyway, this is, we're both sipping coffee. We were going to do cocktails, but the last time we did cocktails for a show,
we've grown up a bit.
We went off the rails just a wee bit. Just a wee bit. All right. I want to end with the top 10 books of the year because that is kind of what the Thriller Zone is all about. We intersperse shows, television shows, and films because Tammy and I are huge content consumers. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's a big pleasure in our household. We have a lot of dialogue around content.
Yeah. We have spent, we used to be the cable people. Then we went to the apps only. Mm-hmm. And now we're back to the cable and apps because you can't have enough content. Now we have 256 channels and 10 apps. So I think we're covered.
And can't find a darn thing to watch half the time.
Do you folks have that problem at home? Same thing? Yeah. It's just crazy. And I can't decide, is it that it is not particularly good, our attention spans are getting shorter, or we're just always wanting a little bit more?
There's a lot of supply out there, David. And with the supply can come watered down product.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why when we find something great, like a couple of movies we recently watched, it's so powerful because it's, back to the days of making an effort to go to the movie theater and watching something monumental, and you walk away and you're just dumbfounded by how good the production was, the actors were. It was a special treat. And now I kind of feel that way. We hold on to a few movies or TV series that are going to be released because they have that promise. They're just going to be so impactful and powerful.
Yeah.
And the rest of the time, shows are good and decent, but it seems as though there are very few shows or movies that just stop us in our tracks.
Yeah. Nicely put. Would you like to start with shows or films? Because we're going to end with books.
Well, it's your show, so you drive the ship.
Well, thank you. I was just trying to be a gentleman and give you a choice. So you want to start with show? Let's start with television shows. You want to do a countdown from 10 to 9 on each one? Let's do that. And I'll tell you what. So I'll get things started with the television show, and this is my number 10 as we make our way to number 1 on the year-end extravaganza on the Thriller Zone. I'm going to start off with number 10, which starred Sigourney Weaver, called The Lost Flowers of Alice Hart.
Oh, good call.
Remember that?
Yeah.
It was one of those times that you got to really see a different side of Sigourney Weaver that I thoroughly enjoyed.
That's a good call.
Yeah.
You didn't particularly get into it. I just don't think that when I was watching it, you were in the middle of a real busy period.
Mm-hmm.
But it is All the Light We Cannot See.
Oh, yeah.
I really enjoyed that production.
Yeah. All right. My number 9 is something we both share. It is one of the few times that, and I am not dissing on her because I think she's a spectacular actress. It's just that I have seen her act in so many things where she was just kind of stuck in this one, what I call reaction. Has this look of like I'm standing on something that hurts my foot. That's just me. Carrie Russell starred in a show called The Diplomat. That's my number 9.
Yes, that is on my list too. Nicely done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's coming back.
Yes, that's what I hear. Well, because it was really good.
It was good.
What's your number 9?
The Crown.
Oh, God, great performances.
Historical fiction. I really like historical fiction. I'm a buff. So I've enjoyed The Crown. I don't know, how much is spot on and accurate, but I think they've done a really good job and I've enjoyed it.
All right. Now, my number 8, I've got a little bit of commentary for each one. I know that comes as a surprise, folks. The original version of the show was led by a big movie star that a lot of people had a problem with as far as mainly stature. However, I liked him. But when the new actor came in by the name of Alan Ritchson, the Reacher series took on a whole new take. And there's something about Alan. I think it's the size of him. Part of it is the size. He's just a beast. And the part of it is he feels like Reacher. Tom Cruise never really quite felt like Reacher to me.
I'm enjoying that. I look at Reacher, Jack Ryan. Was it The Night Agent?
Mm-hmm.
It's all kind of candy.
Right.
It's good storytelling. There's some suspense. I'm not going to walk away from those series feeling heavy, or it's not going to weigh on me for days. I think Reacher's been fun to watch, and we enjoyed that series last year. We're enjoying the second season as well, and yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, it reminds me of, and I've always been a Bosch fan, but it reminds me of this new Bosch legacy. The legacy is not quite, in my opinion, not quite as strong as the original Bosch. And that's another one of those shows. You're like kind of candy-ish, no popcorn, no real big substance. You're not gonna walk away disheartened or torn apart. Good entertainment. Reminds me a lot of television series from the 80s and 90s. But
I like Bosch too, and I agree with you on that description.
Okay.
So I think you're right. It's, those are some series that you can rely on for just good storytelling, easy to follow. Before you know it, the 30 minutes or 40 minutes or 60 minutes, whatever the format is over, and you want a little more. So I like those series. And I think this show could maybe fall into that a little bit too. The morning show.
Oh, yeah.
I have liked John Hamm being involved in this season. I was ready for it to end. I think they put a dot on the top of the I or cross the T rather well. And if this is where it is and this is where it ends, I'm good with it.
And that's your number 8? Gotcha. Okay.
Or 7, wherever
Yeah.
we are.
My number 7 is, we're starting with 7 here. So it was nice to see this huge movie star come out of nowhere and do comedy, because he's known for his drama, specifically adventure action. And he's teamed up with funny man Jason Segel in a show I loved called Shrinking. Cue the bell, right? About a therapist. It was just so stinking good. And
Harrison Ford was phenomenal.
yeah.
I missed that one, and it would definitely make my list. I agree with you wholeheartedly, and it's coming back, and I'm really excited for next season.
What's your number 7?
Slow Horses.
Slow. I knew it. And actually, I thought your Slow Horses were going to be higher. Now, folks, here's a series that we have a little disparity in our home. I like the actors. It's getting great awards. It's just not, for some reason, sometimes you want to like it. It just hasn't hit me right. But boy, you have really enjoyed it.
What is it now? The third? I think it's the 3rd season.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it's good acting, a solid storyline. It's not buffoonish. It's believable. And I like it.
Well, the believability is, so you have these secret agents, so to speak. What's the
MI5? Or
MI5?
something.
However, they're the slow horses in the bunch. They're the rejects of the MI5, so to speak, and it's led by
Gary Oldman.
I got to give it to this guy. You can practically smell him from your living room by the way he dresses and expends certain activities as he goes. But
yeah, exactly.
Wow. Are we on number 6?
I have 3 left, so you might have to give a few of yours.
Well, here's my number 6, and we both enjoyed it. This guy is a lead actor. I discovered him years ago. I personally think he would make a superb James Bond. It's Idris Elba in Hijack.
My research, I have to fire my research people because I've missed 2 great ones, Shrinking and Hijack. I wholeheartedly agree with you on Hijack. And what is one of the things that we talked about that was masterful?
Well, the fact that the whole thing takes place on an airplane in kind of real time.
Right.
And it's just, it keeps you on the edge of your seat the entire series.
Yeah, I agree with you. They had 7 or 8 episodes. It's a 7 or 8 hour flight.
Yeah.
And it was just perfect the way they pulled the story together. Well, I have to pick up some slack over here.
I'll go ahead and throw another one in since I'm ahead. Here's one that we both loved. Here's something that we didn't, when we first saw the premiere or the preview, we're like, but since we both really enjoy wine and there's no real actors in it, Drops of God. Did I do it 3 times?
Just walk away right now because I clearly have not done my homework.
Folks, why this is so funny is that she did her homework way ahead of me. I was doing mine like 5 minutes before the show, and she was like, I've got my list. Do you want to see it? I'm like, no, it's okay. Let me know. So that's why this is so hilarious.
That was a really, really good series.
It was impeccable. And you think to yourself, okay, well, it's a story about winemaking. Okay, but it is... And it gets you right up to the very last episode. Folks, if you haven't seen it, this is something you got to put on your list. It's called Drops of God. And it is beautiful, poignant, powerful, action-ish, lovely. Oh.
Yeah. great story, and no shoot 'em up, bang, bang. You know, like no one's getting shot up by Uzis. There are no um, Molotov cocktails being thrown into windows. Like it literally is a pleasure to watch.
Yeah, that is so good. Yeah. All right. I think you probably caught up. So I'm going to be coming up on number 4. So,
Go ahead with number 4.
all right. So number 4 is something we mentioned earlier. And when the very first episode, I wasn't sure what I was going to think about it. But, was it the 3rd season? We'll get to it in a second. But you got 2 superstar actresses, and then John Hamm joins the show, and it's the morning show on Apple. And the first season was good. The second one, right, was kind of good. And then it was it 3 seasons? Did we just finish the 3rd? Or is it the second?
So.
Okay.
No, it would be at least the 3rd.
All right. Either way, it was, and the lead guy, the lead
Billy
guy,
Kudrow.
yeah,
Kudrow.
who runs this TV station, he's way more multidimensional than you originally thought. But John Hamm adds something, and if you're not thinking Elon Musk when you see John Hamm, then you're not really paying attention. Great series. I got 3 more. So where are you? You want?
I have 3 more.
Okay, so you want to go ahead and do your 3, or I'll do 3?
I'm going to shoot out of the gate with Your Honor.
Beautiful. That's my number 2. Tell me why.
Good old-fashioned storytelling. Love Bryan Cranston. The development of the characters is believable. It pulls you in. It's engaging. I like the arc of how in the first season, you have Bryan Cranston and his side, and you have the gang dad on his side. And in the next season, it shows how the mother, who's played by Hope Davis, how she rises, she becomes more strong, confident, dominant. Yeah. And she was always that silent, domineering figure in the background. But she came to life in this season, and I liked it. Again, like morning show, I think they've probably buttoned it up. Maybe the last frame of the series makes you wonder.
Yeah.
And we might have to put in a call to Joey to see if we can get an inside scoop. But Your Honor, hands down, great.
I was just going to say we got to give a shout out to our buddy Joey Hartstone, who did a book called The Local. He was on the show when he debuted. And I was so impressed with that book, and then we've become friends. And yeah, he owes us a little call because we keep threatening to go hang out in the backyard there in Los Angeles and talk about Your Honor. But boy, just a rock star television show.
Say, pump the brakes, David. I'm on the other side of a writer's strike and a brand new baby, but maybe in 2024, we might actually be able to get in front of him face to face.
Or honey, maybe he's just too big for us now.
We can give him that too.
Okay.
He's a good dude.
So my number 3 is a TV show that I had a very good gut feeling that was going to be a hit. I don't know what it was. We turned it on the first time, and I don't know if it was both of us. I know Tammy was doing a little bit of, I don't know, feels kind of cheesy. I'm like, yeah, but hang on, because I think the cheese factor, pun intended, is going to add a little something to it. And you've seen her, the lead, as a kind of a Marvel star action hero. But Bree in Lessons in Chemistry, based upon an award-winning New York Times bestselling novel, is just superb.
There are a couple things about Lessons in Chemistry. One is I love the fact that you acted with her in a movie, Remember the Days?
Remember the Days, yeah.
When she was just brand new on the scene.
She was brand new, and it was funny because we were just hanging out, and you could tell there was something about her. You're like, I think she's going to be a star. And
so there's always that rooting for her.
Yeah.
I like seeing how she's grown in commercials and movies. This series, completely delightful.
Yeah.
Hands down. Again, easy escape, great storytelling.
Nobody
You
gets
know,
hurt.
no one's going to come into the house with, guns and ammo. And it's just sweet, lovely, delightful.
Yeah, it is a feel-good television show, which I don't know if this makes me sound like I'm getting old or not, but I'm finding, and I think about my buddy Rick Blywise, who he says, we don't really watch much violence in the home. And I say to myself, I can see why. I kind of get that. And the funny thing about this show is now it really pulls you in. The characters are so deliciously crafted. Then there's one moment that just sucker punches you and blows your mind. And you think, how can that possibly happen? Only to go on. And I think I really love it for this reason, besides Brie being a delightful actress, is the power of the woman. That's what I really have dug and seeing more and more of this happening. So kudos.
Yeah. And for the time.
Yeah. Which is the 50s. Let me jump in here and go my number 2, which is your number 3, which is your honor. So I'll get that out of the way for all the reasons we talked about. So now what's your number 2?
I have one left.
My number 1 is Succession. What is yours?
Same.
Big surprise here, folks. Probably one of the best television series in the last several years. One of those series that it was, for some reason, had captured the psyche of not Americana, but the world, and pulled you in with these characters that just like seared your brain, right?
It's so layered that we have watched the series over and over again, from series 1 to up through current. And every time we've watched it, we've seen new things, or we've seen a character unfold in a different way that we hadn't really noticed before. And I think that's because there's so much going on in each episode. I so loved Succession that I watched everything possible about it. I watched interviews with the crew. I listened to Kara Swisher's Succession podcast. I love her. And she did a great job of interviewing the cast, but also weaving in current day stuff. So for example, if there was something that was showing in an episode about technology or about the digital transformation or media, she would have media experts come in and talk about the reality of, well, how true is the show to what's actually happening or what could be happening in the world. Kara Swisher is fantastic, and the Succession podcast was awesome. So Succession, hands down.
There's our number 1 show of the year, and I got to tell you, the lead of that show has a phrase that is a little on the naughty side. There are a lot of my listeners who may not enjoy it. The other ones, I'm going to share that with you if you haven't seen the show. But it's one of those phrases that just says it perfectly when you want someone to get out of your face. And yeah, so there you have it.
Hey, there are a few series that are coming up that I also am interested in watching. So True Detective with Jodie Foster. That series has always been really well done.
So good.
That's coming out in January. Tokyo Vice is coming back. I was like in COVID lockdown and I ran through like all 8 episodes or 10 episodes in a weekend. And then Expats with Nicole Kidman looks thriller, high drama. And that'll come out. I don't know when Tokyo Vice comes out. I know True Detective comes out in January, and then Expats will be in Amazon Prime, and that will come out the end of January.
All right. Well, folks, we're going to take a very short break. When we come back, we're going to move into our top 10 films of the year. So stay with us here for the continuation of the year-end extravaganza with Dave and Tammy right here on the Thriller Zone. And welcome back to the Thriller Zone, David and Tammy Temple in your year-end extravaganza. Top 10 films of 2023. I'll start with number 10. This was gritty and dark and what I would classify as my guilty pleasure. I have two guilty pleasures on this top 10, but this particular one, it was like something I had never quite seen before, called Sisu.
Yeah, so Sisu was also on my list. I don't know if I numbered it 10 or 7, but Finnish World War II hero. He's feared by the Russians. He's immortal. He can't be killed by anything, much less the SS. And it's for sure an action genre. There's a little bit of a political statement in there, which I enjoy. And then there's a splash of female empowerment at the end. You definitely have to be in the mood and you have to be okay with in your face, just full frontal violence.
Yeah, this is not a movie that the kids won't watch, or young kids. You don't want to do that. Your mother-in-law is probably not going to enjoy it. But if you like really ultra-violent movies, then you'll really get a kick out of this. What he does with shovels and blades is disturbing and quite enjoyable. That's my number 10. What's your number 10, darling?
I have a few what I would consider like candy type movies.
Okay.
Just you're going to watch them because of either the actors or the, historical piece. Like we waited forever for Mission Impossible. We completely love that series. And so I'm going to say Mission Impossible.
Okay. Superb choice. And who doesn't like Mission Impossible? We were talking about this. I have watched Mission Impossible since I'm going to say
the TV episodes, right?
Yeah, TV. So I want to say late 60s, early 70s. Don't hold me to that. But I mean, way back then when all that secret agent stuff and all the tricks of the trade were so fresh and new. And so I can't get enough of that. My number 9 is another guilty pleasure. Tammy and I once sat down, I think there are 4 of them, sat down and watched the first one, got kind of addicted to it, rented the second one. And I think by the time either the third or the fourth came along, we said, let's just buy the entire series because we're going to watch them over again. You know what's going to happen. You know who the lead guy is. You know exactly how the movie's going to end. But John Wick.
I wondered if that was where you were going.
John Wick, I mean, Keanu Reeves just brings the heat constantly. And I think by number 4, see what you think about this. By the time we got to number 4, and again, I'm a big John Wick fan, but by number 4, I felt myself going, okay, you've just now pushed it a little bit too far because there's too many machine guns with 10 guys shooting at one guy and he's not getting hit, but he turns around and he makes one shot and he gets them at a long distance. And sometimes that suspension of belief it's even too much for me to handle sometimes. But John Wick, there's my number 9.
I like John Wick. The first and second one, I liked the story. It was a good story. And there was a little bit of violence. The violence was secondary to the story. I think once we got into the third one and for sure the fourth one, I felt like I was inside of a video game.
Yeah.
You open up a door and all right, it's going to be 3 minutes of violence. We're going to have shooting. We're going to have, throat slashing. We're going to have everything. You're going to be impaled. And then boom, 3 minutes hits. And now they've moved the story along. So that doesn't really appeal to me that much, but it was nice to just see where they took the story and if that's going to be the end of it.
Yeah. You're number 9?
Air.
Oh, yeah.
The Nike story with Matt Damon, Ben Affleck. Rob Lowe was in, or Jason Bateman was in there. Not Rob Lowe, Jason Bateman. I liked it.
Yeah, it didn't make my top 10, but it would have made number 11. It was a good story. My number 8 is something a little bit off the beaten path. I haven't chosen a lot of foreign films, but this one particularly got me. I think because it was subtitled in Korean, directed by Celine Song. And the reason I watched it and we watched it was the lead actress is someone from morning show that I really, really loved. And it's a movie called Past Lives. And it's just a sweet, powerful, poignant movie about these two folks who fall in love and kind of fall away and then come back together again. And I don't want to give too much away because it's so enjoyable. And it's a little darling on the film circuit. So that's my number 8.
Past Lives made it to my list too. And one of the reasons why I liked it is it just was like this lovely little roller coaster. No real highs, no real lows, but you just kind of went along through the movie and the story. And even at the end, you and I sat and talked about it, I think, for an hour. Like, you shared where you thought the story was going, what she was feeling, what the other couple of characters were feeling. I shared my perspective. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Past Lives. And I think it was on Apple.
Yes.
Am I up?
You're number 8.
Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret.
Yeah, on my list. Oh, such a sweet, sweet movie.
I wasn't a Judy Blume person. I never read her books, and I hadn't read this book. I really enjoy all of the actors in the movie, and it was just, again, super pleasant.
Yeah.
You didn't have a emotional hangover after watching it. You were along for a nice ride.
Yeah, it was enchanting. That's the word that comes to my mind. The lead actress was just enchanting, and a coming of age story, and just warm and delightful and humorous. And I think it's something you should add to your list, folks. All right. My number 7 is something that I kind of went kicking and screaming on this one. I was like, yeah, I don't know that I'm going to like this, honey. I'm not sure I'm really going to get into it. And it was one of those movies that we said, okay, we have to watch this before our year-end extravaganza. So we watched it last night.
Yeah.
And Barbie, starring the lovely, lovely
Margot
Robbie, and the other lovely Ryan Gosling, was, and I think the reason I liked it, sure, it was great candy, bubblegum to look at, but boy, the underlying message is so strong and palpable. I mean, women power unite, for crying out loud.
Barbie was on my list too. I wanted to watch it because of all of the commentary. You definitely have to be in the mood. It's not a traditional setting.
Right.
It made me think about how did this whole creation come to life for Greta? Yeah. And I loved her movie, Lady Bird.
Yeah. Love that movie. Had that same sense of coming of age about that one.
Yeah, and funny. And I would say something we all experience in our households as we were breaking away from our families. So as it relates to Barbie, I listened to a really good interview with the director and creator, Greta Gerwig, I think is her name, on Smartless.
Yeah.
And she gave a lot of backstory and background about this actor or actress definitely has to be in, like, where some of the impetus came from for the actual movie. And I'm glad we watched it.
Yeah. And if you haven't had a chance, check out, speaking of a great podcast, is Smartless. My number, let's see. So my number 6 is Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. So we can just skip on ahead of that, but that was just a flat out charming movie. So what is your 6?
Well, I'm down to 4 because we've talked about some of mine were consistent with yours.
Oh, okay. So you're doing it that way. So, all right, then I'll jump ahead to my 5, which is Top Gun Maverick. Great popcorn movie.
Yeah.
The first Top Gun, seminal piece. We were all there talking to Jack Stewart right there at your table just weeks ago, a Top Gun fighter pilot telling us that the whole reason he went into the service in that particular mode was because of that movie. So it was really fun to be able to relive that movie, talking to Jack as we enjoyed and talked about Maverick. So I mean, if everyone probably in the world has seen Maverick by now, but just a fantastic popcorn movie.
I like that movie too. So I have 4 left. How many do you have left?
I have 4. So my number 4 is, and here's another one that I thought and I'm gonna get a little heat for saying this particular phrase of, I thought it was a chick flick. However, but I knew that with the 2 stars in it, I was going to really enjoy it because I'm a huge fan of Annette Bening and Jodie Foster. So the movie is Naiad, about the gal who swims from Florida to Cuba.
Vice versa.
Cuba to Florida. I knew it was one way or the other, depending on which way the current's going. But
not really.
No, just a spectacular, heroic film.
That was my number 4 as well. I really enjoyed it. And I remember when I think it's Diana or Diane, had a successful crossing, if you want to describe it that way, and all of the news reports. And I thought at the time, I could not imagine the training, enduring what she went through to swim for, what was it, 2.5 days? Like 2.5 days straight. Great story. Well done. Annette Bening, Jodie Foster are believable, and I would definitely recommend it.
We're inside the movie. She is almost to her destination. And because of things that happen, I don't want to spoil it for you, but things that you would imagine would happen in the water en route, south to north, was unnerving. And you would think any average bear would give up, and yet she didn't. And the rest is history, but a spectacular movie. My number 3 is another movie that we saw recently, and probably the longest movie I've seen in a long time, starring 2 ginormous movie stars. Yes, it stars many more actors, but DiCaprio and De Niro in Killers of the Flower Moon. Wow. What an eye-opening. And of course, we knew a lot of that history, but I didn't know it to the degree that we learned it. And it was, and the 3+ hours actually, except for maybe at one point, was not cumbersome, was it, babe?
No, we were definitely in the mood to be entertained. So we weren't antsy. We kind of knew what we were in for. We planned to watch the movie, and I thought it was very well done. Unbelievable, some of our history and behaviors. It's incredibly tragic. But I think they did an incredible job of sharing the story.
To your point of tragedy, it is, and I'm not going to go off on a soapbox here, except to say this: it is a shame that we, as Americans, as a world, have treated certain groups of people a certain way. I mean, it just blows my mind, and it's heartbreaking. And there's 2 sides to every argument. We've done this with different ethnicities and different religions all throughout time, and it's sad. And I think it's worth watching the movie to really fully appreciate some of those very things and kind of the ignorance behind so much of it. But a spectacular performance. You can be sure it's going to clean up at the Oscars.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how the Oscars and, just the award shows unfold. There's a lot of good content out there and a lot of powerful content. And I think I'll just zip it when it comes to political commentary because I always have a few things to say, and this just isn't the format for it.
Yeah, it's a holiday year, an extravaganza. And we're down now to the last two, and I bet you dollars to donuts that we've got the same last two. May or may not be in the same order, but since I'm leading here, I'll go with number 2, starring a guy that I got a little bit of a man crush on because the guy is not only gorgeous, but and I knew he was a great actor. We've known he's a great actor for a long time, whether it's comedic or serious. And he's done more serious, I think, than comedic, although he made a buttload on one particular franchise of comedy. But when I saw him in A Star is Born, when I learned that he had taken the time of research to learn how to sing and write and so forth, but to be able to act and direct a film as powerful as Maestro about Leonard Bernstein, it is probably one of the most fascinating, beautifully crafted, thinking person's movie I've seen in a while.
I agree. And that was my number 2. I mean, number 1 and number 2 could be interchangeable here. I thought it's amazing. Just flat out stunning performance. I did not know the history of this individual and his family. I think we watched a couple of interviews on CBS this morning, maybe 60 Minutes. I listened to a podcast with Carey Mulligan. And I mean, Bradley Cooper is an incredible talent. When you think about his acting ability, he talked about spending 6 years and learning how to conduct, going into character and staying in character.
Yeah.
Great movie.
Yeah. Not only does he have the tonality and the gestures and the body language, but when he goes to direct the orchestra, you would believe that he's done it his whole life, number 1. Number 2, one of the few times that you really get to see an actor disappear. I mean, he literally just disappeared into this character. Part of that is because of makeup. Part of it is because you're so caught up in the story. But my household, we grew up listening to classical music my whole life. So, and big fan of Leonard Bernstein and London Philharmonic and all that stuff. So when I saw this, and again, I'm with you, Tammy, I did not know that much about his personal life. And my favorite part, this is when you know you're really onto something. His directing, the visuals of this. I had we heard the same podcast with Carey Mulligan. That was interesting. But then I watched this little feature with Spike Lee, and Spike Lee was basically practically bowing to Bradley, saying, "This is one of the most amazing films I've ever seen." He goes, "I've seen it 3 times, one of which was at your home with you." And he goes, "It was just an amazing performance." Yeah, okay. But your directing has skyrocketed since Star is Born. I was just... Now we're down to number 1 film of the year, and I bet you a lot of folks may share this number 1. It is a big movie. It's another long movie. It's about a moment in time that has kind of changed the landscape of both politics and health, etc. And all I ever have to say, when it comes down to me sometimes, all you got to do is tell me who the director is, and I know I'm in. This particular director, Christopher Nolan, anything he does, I love. So it's Oppenheimer, about the guy who created the bomb. And wow, bam.
I agree. I thought that was an incredible performance, great movie. I did not know a lot of the backstory building up to how the bomb was developed. I don't remember any of that from history classes. So as an adult, it was very interesting to to learn a little bit more about that background. And then, of course, what happens is you and I watch that movie and we end up, researching and getting backstory about that time period. So I guess that's one of the beautiful outcomes of watching a solid performance is the discussion that it provokes, as well as the research and the data to just learn even more about what was happening during that time period.
There's one thing that happened in the film that I caught myself going, really, folks? Do you not know what an atom bomb has the potential to do when they're setting, way back off the distance and they're putting some kind of a lotion on their face to protect and they're wearing sunglasses and hope I don't get, my eyes get burned or, it's atomic forces coming at you and their hair's blowing. And anyway, so there's that little moment I'm like, where's the stupidity factor? However, they did not know at the time. But folks, we're going to take another quick short break. And when we come back, we've got our top 10 books of 2023. And Tammy and I are going to share a little extra something. I don't know how you've broken your list down, honey, but I have a little bit of an ancillary thing built into mine. So I got my top 10. I also have a best debut. I came up with a best debut because I've talked to so many debut authors this year that I just was really taken with it. And then I have one for most original. But anyway.
I have documentaries as well.
Documentary films? Oh. Well, I didn't have that listing on my list. So would you like to do that real quick? How many do you have?
5.
5. Okay, so we won't take a break just yet. Let's go ahead and let's hear your top 5 documentaries. And I'm sorry, but I don't have any.
That's all right, because you watched the majority of these with me and you'll have some feedback. Last year, we talked about documentaries. Some of the political documentaries led the way for us. This year, we watched The Pigeon Tunnel about David Cornwell.
Jean Le Carré.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was on Apple, and that was really interesting to hear about his background and how he was raised and what was brought into his writing, like his life experience and his family. I thought it was very well done.
Loved that. Mm-hmm. Big fan of the author, big fan of that documentary maker. Yes. What's number 4?
Carlos Ghosn, The Last Flight. This is about the auto exec, the CEO president of Nissan Renault. Remember when we watched that?
Oh, yeah.
So he's imprisoned in Japan. He escapes to Lebanon through a music equipment case. Do you remember this?
Yes.
And
concert boxes. Yeah.
So as you watch this guy goes from victim to villain, and back again all throughout the series. I thought it was really well done. It was interesting to hear again the backstory on how all of that came to be, because we certainly saw it in the headlines as, this guy escapes. But I wasn't really following his story when he was imprisoned in Japan and all of that. I just remember him escaping. We also watched Still, Michael J. Fox's documentary.
Yeah, I didn't see that one. You were watching it. I think I came in at the very tail end of it. I would like to see it though, but you really were taken with it.
Yeah, it's like a peek into somebody's life that, we've watched this individual rise.
Since he was a kid.
I think he's just a few years older than I am.
Yeah.
So, to see his life transform.
Yeah.
And I'm sure as a public person, it's very hard to live your life and certain parts of your life in the public eye. No doubt, even harder in the last 15 years with the internet and social media. Like, it would just be
terrible,
horrible to go through hardships and have it painted all over media. And then 20 Days in Mariupol, it's about the Ukraine and Russian war. I think I watched that too when you were knee deep in like editing 4 podcasts. We are huge supporters, again, not to be political, but we're huge supporters of the Ukraine effort.
Yes.
And so it's, just seeing the reality of what is happening in that country is very interesting
Yeah.
to me. And then we paid attention to a couple of documentaries, like one stupid sex cult in I think it was outside of Albany in New York. And then
Mother God, was that the one?
Oh, that is this one that I'm going to talk about. Love Has Won, the Cult of Mother God. I think both of these, you and I kind of dipped our toe in the water and looked at each other and said, WTF, like there's no way in hell we'll spend time going down this rabbit hole.
I think it's because I grew up in it my whole life. So a lot of the church religion scene I was in was so cultish anyway. So when I saw that, I just kind of cringed and kept moving through. Although I did catch a couple of really zany moments, and I'm looking at it going, yeah, that's even dumber than what I saw. So, and is that wrap your documentaries in? Okay, cool. Folks, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to get to that book list, top 10 books of 2023, right here on the Thriller Zone. Stay with us. And we're back here on the year-end extravaganza with Dave and Tammy on the Thriller Zone. It's been a good one so far. Thank you for your input, darling. So good.
You're welcome. Yeah, I always enjoy this.
Now, it's been a year of content. TV shows, movies, as we mentioned, and books. This is the hardest for me because I have a wall stacked full of books. I've got a storage compartment that is stacked full of books. And to mention your favorite books is like having 6 children and going, well, these are my top 3 favorites. It's nearly impossible to do. So all I can do is pick 10 that really hit me. Now, what did I say this year? Well, we're at about 162 episodes as of now. We're wrapping our 6th season. 2024 will kick off season 7. Hard to believe. But in that, so if you figure 4 a month, so I've done about 48 or 50, maybe a little bit more this year. So it's hard to boil it down when there's so much good stuff, but I'm going to do my best. All right, I'm going to start off with number 10, which is a guy who came out of nowhere. And I remember I saw him on a YouTube video sitting down to read an excerpt from his debut novel. And I thought, there's something about this guy. Maybe it was that he's cool and he's from the South where I'm from, although he's from Arkansas and I'm from North Carolina. Maybe it's the fact that I had beard envy because he has one of the handsomest beards on the planet. But then you read the book Ozark Dogs and you realize that Eli Craner is one of the master craftsmen of our time and is going to be a star for some time to come.
I remember you talking about Eli and his work.
Just a stunning, stunning book. You thought Don't Know Tough was good? I think, yeah, Ozark Dogs is better. Babe, what's your number 10?
You know, I approached books differently than you did. And I think understandably, like this is the feeder for the podcast. So, you know, I pulled out books that I personally enjoyed, whether it was, you know, we were able to do a little more traveling this year.
Mm-hmm.
So it entertained me as we were flying to and from different places. So why don't you keep going and I'll chime in. I think I have a few to talk about, but I don't have 10.
Okay, gotcha. So my number 9 came from a guy that I met. He's a Texas boy. And when I read this book, it reminded me of something that, well, I don't really like to do comparisons much because it takes away from it. Let's just put it this way. This guy grabbed me from page 1 and just bounced me all over the place like a ricochet. Taylor Moore.
Ah.
Yeah, good book. That's my number.
Nice.
That's my number 9. I'll keep going with number 8.
Yeah.
Now, I had heard this from this about this author. I'm embarrassed to say that I had not read her work. I had heard that she was quite a force to be reckoned with. I started following her on social media, and then I somehow started digging into her work, and I went, I got to find out more about this. So I reached out to publicity and so forth, and they sent me a copy of a book by Megan Abbott called Beware the Woman. And I got to tell you something, that was a page turner. Talking about a book that blends literary fiction with the thriller genre, so you could call literary thriller. It was, she has a magical way with sentence structure like very few people I've read. Remarkable book. All right, number 7 is from a guy that has been on the show once or twice, maybe 3 times, but twice for sure. He wrote a book. When I mention the title, you're going to have images conjured up instantly. Happens to be one of my favorite movie franchises. And this guy delivers with the book, The Born Defiance, the author, Brian Freeman. I did not want that book to end just flat out paced like a rocket ship.
I remember that podcast. And he's such a nice guy, too.
Super nice.
Yeah, really nice guy. Talented author.
Yeah. You may keep going?
Yeah.
All right. Now we're down to number 6. Now, here's another guy that I had not read before. I was aware of his reputation. He and his brother are prolific writers. He is a mainstay. I call him a legend, and he's ridden me about that ever since. Ridden, not written. And we made a joke about it. I got to see him face to face at BoucherCon, and he's as charming and lovely and hilarious as you can possibly imagine. The thing that strikes me the most is his graciousness. I mean, this guy is a rock star. We're talking about Lee Goldberg, and he's a rock star, and he doesn't act like it. You'd think, oh, he's not going to do that. He's not going to promote that. He's not going to help that. And he does all of that and then some. And I'm most impressed with this particular book, Malibu Burning. I love a heist story, and he delivers. This thing is tight as a drum, keeps going forward, and just great characters. Kudos to Lee Goldberg, number 6.
I remember when you did that interview, too, and you hung on that for a while. Just, there's some people that you walk away from that leave you with such a great feeling, and he was one of those interviews.
Yeah, just a good dude.
I think I could jump in now, maybe on a couple.
Oh, go ahead.
One of the books that I read, I think we were flying somewhere, and I couldn't put this book down, and it was literally reading it across the country. And then I had like a day where I just finished the book, devoured the book. Drowning with T.J. Newman.
Also, my number 5. Right, just like you. You can't stop turning the pages.
Yeah, I really enjoyed her book, Falling. I enjoyed her book, Drowning, obviously. And I would continue picking up her work, especially if I'm in that setting where I want to be distracted, I want a good story, and I'm going from point A to point B. And this is something it'll be a nice escape.
Yeah, and talking about a gal who came out of nowhere, flight attendant who is scribbling notes on her cocktail napkins. She has a great story, by the way. And big kudos to Shane Salerno and the Story Factory, who has become not only friends of ours, but also a supporter of the show. And so extra little special love there. But yeah, TJ just, you thought there's no way you could top Falling. And then she comes out with Drowning, and you're like, oh, you did it. I mean, spectacular story.
Yeah, it was well done.
And going to be a movie.
The other book that I read, and this was another cross-country leg that we did, All That Is Mine, I Carry With Me by William Landay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really good.
He's a great writer.
Yeah. That was haunting.
Yeah. There's something about that. Haunting is a great word, babe.
There is another one. This might be an edit, but it was she was an attorney. She is an attorney in Seattle. Her dad is also an attorney. He is he's an alcoholic, and she gets a case from about a woman was murdered, and so the husband, of course, is the focus of the investigation. And it was the chess component was a big part of the story, and how the story
Dugoni.
Yeah, Bob Dugoni.
Yeah.
That is another book that I really enjoyed. Again, cross-country flight.
Yeah. You know, babe, you caught me because I forgot about that. And when I was doing my list, that was such a powerful book. Mm-hmm. Great character studies. It reminded me of, like, I don't know why. Do you remember, what was that Paul Newman movie where he played the attorney?
Absence of Malice.
Absence of Malice. It for some reason, something about that reminded me of that. But a spectacular book, Amazon book. I'm going to jump in here with number 4, my number 4, which is a guy who wrote a book. He's written a couple of books. He's written several books. Another shout out to Story Factory, because he is one of their stables of talents. But I remember when November Road came out, I thought Lou Berney. When it came out, I was like, wow, this is magnificent. I'm like, what has he got up his sleeve next? And we were all sitting around waiting for his next book. Then Dark Ride comes out. And at first I'm like, well, this isn't really kind of a thriller. But boy, talking about a lead character, Hardly was his nickname, that you cannot forget. You don't forget you just don't forget this character. I'm going to pull up
Well, and how the nickname is so apropos for the background of this character. He's hardly giving any effort in life.
Right.
So it was very clever. Lou.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just a great Lou Berney. You did it again, buddy. And that has got to be made. That will be made into a movie. If Shane Salerno has anything to do with it, you can be sure.
That was a good podcast too.
Yeah.
He really, he was just Lou was really participatory. Sometimes you get people on the show and you have a sense of, I wonder if they're like quiet and an introvert, and you're going to have to pull information out of them. And I kind of thought that might be Lou, but then once you got him on, he's totally different than what I thought he was going to be.
And a sense of humor.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Gregarious and yeah.
I don't know if he drinks or not, but boy, I'd love to sit down with him for over a couple of beers or a bottle of wine or a couple of little fingers of whiskey or bourbon, because I'd like to see him get loosened up a little bit and really let it ride. But I was just so... He makes me laugh. And I want, as we were talking about, look at the people who've been on the show. Don Winslow, TJ Newman, Lou Berney. And I'm thinking, what would the chances of me, speaking of Shane Salerno, I would love to get him on the show. We do agents and so forth and publishers. And I'm like, he would be a fun character interview. Anyway, that is my 4. Are we down to number 3 now? You're down to your number 3?
I read some of Don Winslow's work this year, and that was City on Fire and City in Ruins.
City in Ruins is, I think, coming out next.
Wait. Then City on Fire.
City of Dreams.
City of Dreams.
Yeah.
My style of reading, or what I'm interested in, are generally gritty series. A big, thick book with a lot of depth and a lot of character. And I want to live in it, not just for one book, but give me a series of 6 books or, 3 heavy duty books, and I am one happy girl. So when Don came out with this trilogy, I didn't read the book that came out last year. I waited until the spring until the second book came out, and I sat down and plowed through those 2 books. I'm excited to see what happens with Danny in the next book.
Yeah.
But I'm also excited to see if Danny comes to life on the silver screen.
Got a pretty good feeling that it's going to happen. And I'm with you. City on Fire was spectacular. And I wasn't really quite sure. This sounds stupid for me to say. Didn't know if Don could top that one. But of course he can, and he did with City of Dreams, which is my number 2. But Don, the one thing about Don, he's my hero and I love his books, but boy, he's got a way of telling stories. And the only thing that breaks my heart is the fact that after City of Ruins, he's supposedly retiring at the end of that series and come April of next year, but we'll see. Let me jump back real quick with my number 3 before we go to your number 1. But my number 3, speaking of the Goldberg brothers, and come to find out with an interview that you just heard on Monday with Todd Goldberg, Gangsters Don't Die. I saw Todd hanging out with his brother at BoucherCon here in San Diego this past summer. And when he was out there, pimping Gangsters Don't Die, he handed me a copy. He said, "Here, read it." I'm like, "Okay, that sounds good," because I love mobsters. Couldn't put this book down, dude. This is true. Number 3 on my list. One of the top 3 favorite books of this year, just nonstop. And then as we were talking, as you heard on Monday or Tuesday, when we were talking, I said, the way you tell stories and your character development is so cerebral and so magnificent and strong and palpable. I'm like, I got half of a hankering to go back and get my MFA from UC Riverside as long as you're going to be the professor. And then he told me what the price was. And I'm like, okay, maybe I won't be doing that. But anyway, number 3 goes to Gangsters Don't Die. Number 2 goes to City of Dreams, Don Winslow. And now we're down to Tammy's number 1.
I'm going to toss this out to a good friend of ours, Chris Hauty, Devil You Know. And Chris reminds me of how I speak about Meg Gardner.
Yeah.
Both of these writers are intellectual writers. They have great story. They have great character development. Just give me book. Like, I'll go back and I will read Chris's earlier work because I didn't do that. I just jumped into the story. But I just think that first of all, he's a fun and fascinating guy. And I love him. And so, to be able to read his work and enjoy his work and like the way he crafts a story, it was just a delight to see what he's like as a professional and read his work. And I thought it was fantastic. So Chris Hauty is my number 1 dude.
For those who don't know Chris Hauty, like we've gotten to know him, he's probably one of the funniest guys on the planet. There's only one guy funnier, in my opinion, and that's my old friend, Mike Gross. And one of these days, I'm going to get Mike on the show just for the kicks and giggles of it.
Well, he could give some input around TV series and production, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Considering his line of work.
Absolutely. Well, so interesting that you'd pick Chris Hauty. Now, because I have an absolute obsession with ties and this, that, and the other, and I'm a big Haley Chill fan, I have a tie for number 1. And it's a tie between Chris Hauty. And if it was just by a microscope, and he's gonna kick me for this, I know, but my number 1 favorite, so he's my 1B, but my 1A is The Spy Coast by Tess Gerritsen. Yeah. And I think you've heard me talk about this.
Yeah.
I have been raving about this since the minute I read it. I'm getting tired of that cliche. I keep saying it. Couldn't put the book down. I kept turning the pages. Either way, it's about retired spies, and it's just one of those absolutely perfectly balanced stories between character, enough intrigue, with no real serious action. The thrill is in the ride more than the gun, so to speak. But just if Tess Gerritsen, of course, I had known of her, had never really read her. It's the kind of book when you finish reading it, and I told her this on the podcast a few weeks back. I said, Tess, now I've got to go back. So thanks for devouring all my time, and go read all your other books, because it made me go, this craftsmanship is so magnificent. Anyway, I'm going to gloat too much, but that's my number one.
Yeah, and you talked about Todd Goldberg in that same way with his work.
Yeah,
so it's fun for me when you step out of these conversations. It's how you feel, like you take on the energy of this podcast. And so when you walk out the door and you just have your feedback to share about the podcast, and then I'm watching you read these books and I hear you share with me, I hear you share the story and how much you're enjoying it. And there aren't a lot of people that you will say, I'm going to go back and read their earlier work. So when you make that comment, it's significant.
Yeah. And the reason I say that, and it's not a suck up, and I only have, I don't know about you, honey, but I only have 24 hours in a day. And, I'm doing either 1 or 2 podcasts a week. So I'm reading at least 2 books a week. So, and I'm trying to stay ahead of the curve. So if I'm doing debut authors and rock star top sellers of all time, it's kind of hard to go back into back catalogs. So I save the back catalogs for vacations. I heard that word once. I don't know exactly what a vacation is. I'm going to look it up on Webster's or something a little bit later. But anyway, so there's my top 10. I do have a best debut. However, it's a 3-way tie. So you're going to have to bear with me a second. These are 3 debuts of this year. It happens to be 3 guys. So gals, I'm sorry. These are just the 3 that stand out in my brain that I'm like, oh my goodness. I want to come up with the debut, because there's so many great debuts. I want to do more of those, but I'm like, I only got so much time. Number 1 in the 3-way tie is Unknown Rider by Jack Stewart. There's a Top Gun pilot who tells it like it is. Been there, done that. Mach 1, rocking it. Number 2, The Bitter Past by Bruce Borges. For some reason, that was one of the most palpable, memorable books I've read this year. And
I remember you talking about Bruce.
Yeah. And then number 3, another book that I'm like, this guy, if he can write the next 3 books as good as his debut, he's going to be a certifiable rock star. You can say this about all 3 of these guys, but that phrase pops out of my mind when I talk about T.R. Hendrix and the book, The Instructor. So not only was it a good read, it took me to school. I'm a Boy Scout. I was nearly an Eagle Scout, and he taught me a few things that you can use in survival that I did not know, and I'm taking them with me. So there you go. One more quick thing, only because
it's your show. Take all the time you need, David.
Thank you, honey. I have a book, one category for most original. And when I say most original, it has to do with the genre that I don't read a lot of. It's a very particular voice. It's a very particular characterization. It's a place and time. And it is Rick Blywise, Murder in Hacksford. You remember this TV show I got you turned on to? I grew up watching this TV show on public television called All Creatures Great and Small.
Yeah.
I got you caught up onto that world in the newer season. That's kind of Hercule Poirot. That if you took Hercule and All Creatures Great and Small, you kind of got Rick Blywise. Again, family fun, good mystery storytelling.
I remember you talking about, he has a couple of books like that, doesn't he?
Yes. Number 2, he's working on number 3. Let's do this, because I know you and me, we have a list. I've got a stack sitting right here on my floor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books that these are books that they're right in my queue for 24, or there are things that I'm anticipating, or there are books that I wanted to squeeze in this year that I couldn't quite get to, and I'm going to read maybe over the holidays?
I tend to lean towards, if we're just at home and I'm looking to read something, I lean towards more of like nonfiction work or like the newspaper.
Mhm.
um, or um, you know, topical stories. That's where I tend to go on a day to day.
Mhm.
If we're going to travel or if we're out of town, then that's usually when I have the opportunity. And maybe it's just bandwidth in my mind. My headspace I only have so much RAM drive left, David. um, but I really enjoy Meg Gardner. I'm interested in reading even more of her unsub series, and I know that she's coming out with a book in January. Chris Hauty maybe he will have something new that's going to come out in the new year or in the next or in the near future. Let's put it that way. I'll read anything that he puts out there. And then, kind of speaking to my earlier comment about, I really enjoy um, historical fiction was what I read predominantly for years. And then, that kind of switched. Life just turned and I don't have that opportunity to fall into that too much anymore. But I have held these particular books out there, and I will make it there one of these days. But I'm really interested in reading Don Winslow's Cartel, The Border, Power of the Dog. That work really feeds to my interest. It
Mhm.
feels non-fictional, docudrama-ish. I would say, between Chris and Meg and Don, I probably have my hands full for the next couple of years on our travels.
Well, I can tell you I have a very handsome bookshelf. It's actually right behind you, where a stack of those people that you'd like to read,
It'd be over
yeah,
there.
are currently living.
Yeah.
So I know where you can go. All right, here's 3 quick books that I have yet to read. Weapons Grade by Don Bentley, carrying on the Tom Clancy timeline. The Peacock and the Sparrow by I.S. Berry. Got a chance to speak with her briefly at BoucherCon. It was like a 15-minute conversation, but another literary thriller fiction writer. Andrews Wilson, our pals. The Sandbox. That is a couple of books. But books I'm looking forward to, I'm shadowing you here on this. Shadowheart by Meg Gardner. Anything by Chris Hauty? Here's a few more. The Chaos Agent, which is right on the fringe of dropping, Mark Graney. Always a good interview. Terry Hayes has a book called A Year of the Locust. I use it in the gym when there aren't any free weights available because it's almost 1,000 pounds. So I use it as a bench press, and it's really fantastic. Nick Petrie has a book called The Price You Pay. Now, folks, if you haven't read any Nick, you got to get on that. He's just a flat out superstar writer. Two more. Greg Hurwitz, Lone Wolf. I've been wanting to talk to Greg forever. I saw him at Thriller Fest this past go and stopped him. I'm like, Greg, what do I got to do to get you on the show? He said, just reach out to my people, babe, and I'll get it done. So we're doing that. And finally, this book just came in the mail this week. Debut author John Lindstrom. The book is called Hollywood Hustle. He knows a thing or two about it. And as I'm looking at the cover, and I follow this guy on Twitter and Instagram. Probably one of the kindest, most approachable, nicest guys he appears to be. And I made a comment to my beautiful wife here, and I said, God, when I look at him, why do I think soap opera star? And she said,
hello, As the World Turns and True Detective season 2. There could be a little starstruckness there, a little bit from the wife's side, but
okay. Handsome dude.
One person who we hold up as like just a true blue good guy and we're always rooting for is Jack Carr.
Oh, 100%.
You had him on the show last May. You interviewed him at BoucherCon.
Mm-hmm.
I think you've read every one of his books.
Yeah, all 4 of them.
And
5 of them. Yeah.
Follow Up to the Terminal List should be coming out maybe in the new year now that the writer's strike has been resolved.
Chris Pratt, yeah. Yeah, I have such deep admiration for Jack Carr. The guy, he's a good guy. He's genuine. He's approachable. He's warm. He's a marketing genius. He's got a good podcast. He's got a TV series. He's got movies. I mean, he's kind of like my idol growing up was Michael Crichton, because I loved his books. And I thought if I could ever be like any author, it would probably be Michael Crichton. And Jack Carr is kind of that in that same, he can kind of do it all. Plus he served our country for decades. So I'm just, huge fan. Yeah. Well, that does it. I would like to wrap the show, if you'd like to, as we wrap up 2023. Here it is, Friday, the 29th. We only have 2 more days until we welcome in the new year. Of course, now, tomorrow, Saturday, the 30th, we celebrate our 6-year wedding anniversary. Man, 6 years of bliss with this beautiful woman.
I know. 6 years.
Yeah.
It's been fantastic.
Yeah. So I thought I would end the year with just a little something that we're both thankful for. And I'd love to start with you, if you would. Just something off the top of your head that you've been thankful for that happened this year that is going to catapult you into the new year of 24.
That's a pretty heavy question, because I could go down a few different rabbit holes. I'm always grateful for our life. I feel like, we've grabbed the moon by the tail and we're just blessed. We have an incredible life. We have good fortune. Our families are healthy. And I know with what's happening in our world today, just how precious our day-to-day experience is. So for that, I am always incredibly grateful for what we have and the ability to just wake up every day, wake up to you and just our whole life experience.
Yeah, because I'm pure joy every day, folks. Every day, pure joy.
You are, actually.
Oh, you're sweet.
I would say I'm grateful if we stick with this world that we're talking about today. I'm really grateful for this community, for you. You've developed great friendships. You've developed confidants, and you have a lot of supporters, and you have a lot of listeners who give you incredible feedback. They share your work. And I think seeing that at BoucherCon this year, I hadn't traveled to any of the book conferences, and I can just see why those conferences, BoucherCon, Thriller Fest, whatever else is out there, are really important and satisfying to your community, because you all get together and you're all just sharing time and sharing space and experience in this microcosm of writers. So I'm grateful for the community that you work in.
Thank you for that. And I agree with that. It's, I say this to people. Hey, you want to go to the conferences? Sure. You're going to learn a lot of stuff? Absolutely. You're going to make connections? 100%. But boy, talking about building relationships and knowing that real business, both heartfelt business and money business, is done over maybe cocktails in the lobby. And, Chris Hauty, I think about Chris Hauty. He's one of those guys that I met at Thriller Fest 2019, and we kind of struck up a friendship. Yeah. And, the thing that I'm thankful for, he's kind of involved in a little bit. So this year, I didn't talk much about it because I'm trying not to make a big spotlight on it. But I was diagnosed with cancer, prostate cancer, back right before BoucherCon, which was kind of a donkey punch and a surprise. And long story short, went through surgery, as some people know, and am now cancer-free. So I'm very excited about that, very grateful for the time I have left. Thankful for you for supporting me and helping me through that, because it is not easy. You put that C word in a sentence and it makes you shudder, and it makes you realize how little time you got left, just kind of in general, if that were the case.
It gives perspective to running into a Matt Scott and his wife at Boucher Con, or who's the gentleman that drove down from Tahoe. He's so supportive
Michael
of the show. Michael Carlson.
Yeah.
I could go on. Steve Stratton, like meeting him for the first time. David Brown, meeting him for the first time. That whole community. So I think that's the icing on the gratitude cake of, you went through this pivotal experience and you come out the other side and you have this great group of people who just support you. It doesn't matter where they fall on the successful ladder, regardless. Yeah. Everyone is there supporting one another.
Yeah, and that's why I brought up Chris Hauty, because he was one of those guys that I told him right away. I don't know why. I guess because we're pretty close in age. And he was like, dude, I'll be there right by your side, whatever you need. And he was on the phone, and checking on me. And Steve Stratton has become a really, really good friend. I believe in that guy. But it's the people who have just lifted me up and helped me through this time. So I just want to say thank you for that, for the folks who do know, and now everyone knows. And it does, it has spawned a nonfiction book that I'll be sharing sometime in the future. And it is also because of the lessons that I've learned, some of which has to do with how your body will react with some kind of a major surgery, is that, it has spawned other interests. So there is a hint of a potential another podcast maybe coming down the road in 24. We don't know, but that's the room. Anyway, so I'm thankful for that. I'm mostly thankful, besides the health, for you, for just always being such a love and consistent and kind and beautiful.
We have a magical life and a magical relationship.
It's pretty good.
And for that, I'm incredibly grateful.
Folks, for our listeners, for our viewers who have followed the Thriller Zone in 2023, thank you for making season both 5 and 6 so killer. If you'd like to stick around, we're going to have you season 7 come on up in 24. If you'd like to be on the show, you can reach out to us. You can, of course, follow us at thethrillerzone.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/thethrillerzone. We're on X, Instagram, at The Thriller Zone. Facebook, I think we're also there. So we're just Thriller Zone, of course. But we'd love to hear from you. Feel free to reach out. You can, of course, hit our email, thethrillerzone@gmail.com. But we are anticipating a pretty spanky new year in 24. We got some things up our sleeve that we want to do. You're going to see more sit-down face-to-face like we did with Jack Stewart and Steve Stratton. Hopefully we'll be able to do more traveling. We're going to come see you where you are, author friend, and sit down with you and see what your life is about and what kind of books you're writing. So a lot of good things to stay in tune for. So folks, make it a great remainder, tail end of your holiday, kick off the new year, be safe, enjoy your time, keep your family close. Happy New Year, and we'll see you in the new year for another edition of the Thriller Zone. Pop, pop.
Nice, babe.
There you go. Burp, 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 burp.
Oh.